Our gathering for song and our sangha, and I'm getting used to this whole, especially after just leaving this space of guiding a room full of people through a yoga nidra, and I go into sort of my own trance as I do this. Tonight was such a sweet class, and I love that I've been sitting here in front of a computer screen and welcoming you all into this room. So welcome, and I realize sometimes now that I'm a little spaced out when I start doing this, and it's probably great. So I wanted to start tonight. Goodbye. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
See you again.
Namaste.
And I wanted to start by kind of saying Happy New Year. As an Oriental medicine doctor and yoga teacher and white American woman, I feel like I get to ride multiple horses at once in my life with all of the ways that I was raised that are very precious to me, and the Western cultural things. I love Western astrology, the Indian Vedic astrology, and the Chinese astrology. They're all different, and they still all have these beautiful stories and ways of looking at the world. So this past week, we entered the Chinese New Year. And I won't go into a lot of detail about that, mostly because one of my colleagues went into a lot of detail about it, and I posted his great post on the New Year on the Lotus Way page. So anybody who's really interested in getting the details of what this New Year is about from a Chinese astrological perspective, it's there for you. But what I wanted to start with tonight, because you're all joining me and we're all together, is that it is the year of the white rat, or the metal rat. And Chinese medicine goes in cycles, 60-year cycles, between the 12 different animals and the 5 different elements. And it takes 60 years to get through all the variations of matching the elements with the animals. So this year is the metal rat. And again, the website will talk about that, but what I wanted to honor tonight as you guys chime in and as we sit as a community is that this year is really about community in a very unique way. And the rat is, the rat pack, right? So they are industrious, they grow community, and they work together as a community. And this year is really a year that is beneficial for all of us to look at how we are doing our work in relationship to the context of a community. We will do more together than we can do alone. And this year in particular, that energy is really strong. And then the metal element is another interesting layer of that. So we have 5 elements in Chinese medicines and philosophies, and metal is all about structure, organization and structure. And so in that sense, we can look at how are we working in a community to help create the structure for our lives, for our projects, for our visions and our missions and our dreams. So it's great to have a dream. We should dream. We should have our dreams be big, small, all sorts of flavors and color, but unless or until we have some structure to hold those dreams and make them manifest in a way that will stay and grow, right? We need structure for that. So this year is a really good year to start a school. Imagine that. And I am doing a lot of work right now structuring our schools. We are creating a lot of curriculum. We're putting together our teams and our teachers, and students are starting to ask questions about dates and times and certifications, and it's really amazing that right now, as the Chinese New Year comes in, that everything that we're doing as a community right now has to do with creating structure for our community and education and growing together. So it just feels really auspicious. So every single person who's chiming in right now live or recorded or who came into this class, I was really just feeling that this week is honestly, at a moment I was getting a little like, oh my God, I just feel like I'm working really hard right now, and I'm in a computer, and we're creating 50 online courses and 8-day retreats, and I'm doing this cannabis and endocannabinology class, and then we're doing a yoga teacher training, and it's great. And I was going, oh my God, I'm just in structure mode. But then I was like, oh wait, that's what we're supposed to be doing. This year is good for that. So any of you guys that are joining in, we're in the right place and the right time. I just wanted to honor that. So the other thing that I wanted to call in today, and this was when I decided to talk to you guys about this, I was a little bit like, ooh, this is a big subject, and I don't want to just throw it out there and talk about it for 10 minutes. But then I went, yeah, I do. I do want to. Because as we're structuring and we're doing all of this stuff, and it's certifications and money and dates and scientific research, and I'm designing all these courses and putting all the empirical evidence and data together to explain why we should learn these things, then I would go and sit and do my meditation practice where none of that flipping matters. And where I had to let go of all of it and realize, oh, how do I teach? How do, while we're teaching all these things, that we keep coming back to teaching this state that I was in my practice? Because that all of this is about getting to that. I mean, together and supporting each other. This place, and the word that came to me to plant today is non-dualism. And non-dualism is how many people that I can see hands of feel like they have an understanding of philosophies that are rooted in non-dualism? A little bit? A little bit. Okay, so I am steeped in them to the point where I realize most people, it's either a totally unfamiliar word, or certainly not something that we learned about in school or science or biology or even philosophy or psychology, and probably not in any of our spiritual practices. But it is at the foundation of my practices. All of them. Everyone. The Chinese medicine stuff, the yoga stuff, when I'm designing and building a house, when I am deciding what to eat. This underlying concept that we're going to talk a lot about if you're studying with me, and if you're just tuning in or just checking things out, I at least want you to go away from here, and I say Google it, because that opens a can of worms. But non-dualism, let's see if I want to make sure that if I'm, oh, that's a different thing. See if I'm not even attending to my notes right now, but 3, 2, there we go. Okay, overly simplified, it alludes to oneness, interconnectedness of all things. Another simple way to say it is, there's no good, or there's no bad, or there's always good and there's always bad, or there's never an all good or all bad. Right? So it's almost impossible to even talk about non-dualism, because our language is inherently dualistic. Our world, as we have, especially in the West, built it, is a very dualistic world. We separate stuff. Right? We think in a way that's always an either or. We try and put things in categories. And in the oldest yogic philosophies, the oldest ways of looking at the human, which, we're a healthcare based ministry, we're really talking about health and healing here all the time. We lose so much when we try and look at things in a dualistic way. When I try and look at someone and say, even when I try and give someone a diagnosis, as soon as I give someone a diagnosis, that's dualistic. I have just pinned you with a label. And nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. Nothing. Everything is constantly an inhale and an exhale, an expansion and a contraction. Light and dark are always existing simultaneously. Life is not always light or always dark. And this underlying way of looking at things is really what has been lost in modern science and modern medicine. Because when we think in this way, we can't measure anything. Because measuring something is a dualistic experience. Empirical science is a dualistic science. And the really cool thing about thinking in a non-dualistic way is it does not negate empirical science. It does not tell us that we can't acknowledge good or bad or data. It just says that's never going to tell us the whole picture. It's always going to be there. So in Tantra, and a really deep part of my lineage, Tantra got really dualized in the West. It became about sex. And the only reason it became about sex was because our Western minds just needed to pin it down. And the thing that was about sex with Tantra is Tantra just did not deny anything in the material world. It embraces everything, the physical and the non-physical and everything in between. And so the tantrics in times, thousands of years ago, where most religions and even political aspirants, it served people to create dualism, to control cultures or to create rules and help a society function. The tantrikas and tantrics were people who sort of just didn't ever fit in a box. And their practices said, okay, well, we can do those things sometimes, but ultimately, I'm a physical being, and sex is a natural part of being a physical being, and we're do everything in a conscious, sacred way, and we're not going to deny these things. Repression and too much structure, back to what I started with, is why I decided to go here. It's like too much structure, and only worrying about structure sets us up to miss a whole big part of what we need to be thinking about all the time in everything we do. So then that makes for a really fun, somewhat hypocritical, complicated dance in life. When we accept this, it doesn't make life easier. And that's another reason why our world became more dualistic. It just would be so much more simple if we could say this is good and this is bad, this is right and this is wrong, this is a disease and you have it and I'm going to treat it this way. And if everybody has these symptoms, then everybody has this disease and we'll treat you all this way. That's what happened. So I just went from general philosophy to, one of my kind of pet peeves with what's happened to a lot of medicine. And it's even happened in yoga. And it's even happened in Chinese medicine. They've become dualized. So Chinese medicine for thousands of years existed in this very numinous space. They did not deny the body. They treated the physical body. They call the dense stuff Jing. They treated the qi, which was the mental and emotional and the energies moving through the body. But they treated the shen, the spirit, the numinous, the unmeasurable, undefinable aspect of ourselves. Well, how the heck do you do that? How do you teach that? What box do I put that in? It's not possible. So that kind of just got taken out of the system. Because communism came about and traditional Chinese medicine got created. And traditional Chinese medicine was extrapolated from the classical multi-thousand-year system of medicine, but they needed to make it kind of more cookie cutter, easy to teach, easy to put in a book, easy to send you out with minimal resources and tools and go treat millions of people. And same with yoga. Yoga started, people started making their own versions and varieties of yoga, right? And in a sense, that's kind of creating a dualistic experience. And all of a sudden then we had and there's nothing, again, I want to remind everybody when I say this, there's nothing wrong with these systems. They're just not the whole picture. When we limit it, when we cookie cutter it, when we make a yoga system that's 27 postures, and that's yoga. That's a beautiful system. There's nothing wrong with it. But if we don't allow ourselves to like expand way beyond that, when we think, especially when we're talking about how to take care of myself, and especially if we're thinking of how to take care of other people, if we don't allow ourselves to like break out of all the boxes and think beyond these structures, we will always miss something. And so that's a little bit of a lesson in dualism. I'm not going to go down into the history, but Advaita Vedanta is the yogic lineage of non-dualistic practice. Vedantic theory is maybe too much for us to talk about today, but there are roots in the yogic Hindu lineages, in Buddhism, all the way back to Taoism, and what we call classical Chinese medicine, that all have the most exquisite teachings about what I'm talking about. So for anyone out there, or any of you who are really interested in going down the rabbit holes with me in this, this morning my personal reading was with Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I don't know if any of you have ever read any of his and her works, but his ashram that she helped him with was called Integral Yoga, and their writings are exquisite. He's very rooted in this non-dualistic thing. You'll either get really frustrated reading his work, or it will resonate with you, and like me, kind of, he's a game changer, a life changer as far as reading both of their work. But he was one of the first revolutionaries who fought for the independence of India from Britain, and he was hired by royal families and teaching at major universities when he had his spiritual awakenings, and ended up being a spiritual teacher. And so reading his work helps me get out of that box when I'm sitting there writing curriculums and trying to figure out how to fit everything together like this puzzle. Then I sat there and read his stuff and went, oh my gosh, I need to remember to teach like this. Right? So as we get ready to teach an 800-hour curriculum to make people yoga health educators and therapists, which is important, and we're going to look at research, and we're going to memorize things and do stuff. We're going to always come back to this space, and that's obviously why I like to do this class that we did before this satsang, which is that yoga nidra space, and dropping into this unbelievable kind of magical juicy space, and now coming back here. So I think I don't need to talk too much more about that. Then this is the other part about non-dualism that I love. So this past week I was working with people in the throes of addiction, really severe, like not even, some of them still using heroin, some of them in their first days out of, in detox. People who had been sex trafficked. I had a real blessing of being able to treat dozens of people this week, and mostly meditation and very quiet space, and then the questions and the fears that I was holding space for, and people literally really close to death. And if they weren't close to death, they're still wondering if they should want to even be on the planet or not. And at the same time, I had a handful. I was in Tennessee, so my other patients that I was working with remotely, which I do sessions with people all over the country. And I had this blessing of coming out of this pretty heavy space with these people that were just dealing with the hardest stuff of life, to working with one of my patient students who is in her 60s and in exquisite health and has this beautiful life, and is still working with me really regularly, and she's refining, right? And it was like this, talk about dualism, like I was dealing with these two different worlds. Her fears were the same. her stuff that she brought to me, this person who's in like better shape than me on a physical level, in her late 60s, she's amazing, and you know, she's worried about dying. She's worried about you know, a little thing that a doctor found here, you know, and overall in super general health. But this, we're all here dealing with life and death every day. All of us are navigating this, and non-dualism is that's where it really starts to, especially as a teacher or a healer, or as you're navigating your stuff from whatever place you are. Healing isn't about making people feel like, the goal is not, I'm going to make it so you feel good all the time. And people are coming to me with anxiety, depression, fear, abuse, addiction, like hard stuff. Of course, I want to make people feel better. I mean, that's my thing. But it's not possible. There is no world where everybody feels good all the time. So how, you know, what's my job? In a non-dualistic world, it becomes a much different thing to grapple with. And it's really quite beautiful, because none of us get to feel good all the time, and all of us are going to die. And that's beautiful. That's that is life. Life is not life or death. Life is not, I feel good or I feel bad. My job is to remember and come from a place of, and then hopefully hold space for everybody to get conscious of wherever we are with all of that, and find peace. And even peace is not like, oh, now everything feels good. Peace is, I'm at peace with the fact that right now I'm in the deepest shit of my life, dealing with the hardest stuff, not sure if I'm gonna make it, and I'm here. And then we find the stuff to work on while we're in that, like, oh, what's there for you in this time? I've held people's hands as they take their last breaths. My job is not to save them in that moment. My job is to hold them and help them be consciously present with that moment. And then I have seen literally the most magical, joyous, unbelievable things in people as they take their last breaths. You know, and a lot of us, that's still really hard to imagine, because I don't want to die. But we're all going to die. And so that non-dualism comes back in. And did I use the word numinous today?
At some point, because I was curious.
Yeah, and so I put that in all caps here to go back to, so the word spirit, in Chinese language classes, when we were learning to translate these 1,000-year-old things, and you guys hear me use the word spirit all the time, I was studying one of my great teachers' translations, and she, instead of using the word spirit, uses the word numinous. And it's a really cool word. It just sounds beautiful. But it's really appreciating these undefinable, unmeasurable, yet completely always present aspects of existence. That is the numinous. And other people, like in the Chinese character that she translates as numinous, other people translate as spirit. So we say mind, body, spirit. We could say the numinous, as well as the physical and the emotional, mental, the numinous. And until we embrace that numinous aspect of existence, we will never have the whole picture. And I don't care if we're talking about architecture or the hardest physical sciences out there. And the physicists are some of my favorite people, because the ones who really, really go down all the rabbit holes that physics can take you down, they get to the numinous. They get there. There's no way out. It's like, the smartest, most brilliant, hardwired science minds usually end up in the numinous. And I was wired probably backwards, right? I felt more comfortable for whatever weird reasons ever since being a child. Like that, the hard sciences killed me. It killed me. I was like, please do not make me answer a multiple choice question because there is no one answer. Like I lived in this numinous space, and I still do. So I had to work backwards, and then end up in the hard sciences and loving and appreciating them. And I think that's the magic place that I hope we get. I hope we all get there, whatever angle that we're coming from. But what's really mostly missing in this world is not the hard sciences and the educational systems and teachers and doctors who operate from that place. They're wonderful, right? Remember, don't need to deny that in the non-dual world. We embrace it. It's just not all there is. We need these other things. And so the Lotus Way and people like me were born to like help re-anchor this, re-anchor, which is ironic because you can't anchor it. This other aspect. And I want my brain surgeon, if I ever have a tumor in my brain and need my brain cut open, I want a brain surgeon who knows their hard sciences but embraces this numinousness. That's who I want cutting into my brain. Right? And I want the person who's going to help me fix a flat tire on the side of the road to have this numinous aspect. It changes everything. Think about it. Like these things that we would think are just these mundane, chop wood, carry water. That's why Miyagi had him chop wood, carry water, because it's not mundane if we allow this numinous aspect into it. So today I invite all of you to look at what you might be doing in your life that you are reducing to a dualistic experience. That you might be able to allow a more numinous aspect to it. And just see how it changes it. Washing your dishes. Filling your gas tank. I'm not talking about, or the big stuff, of course. Right? I think we all kind of, when it comes to death, that's where we start dealing with the numinous. Most of us will contemplate it. But how about the other stuff that we're doing throughout the day? And for sure, if you're dealing with your health and healing, or if you're helping other people with their health and healing, look at your language. Look at what's going on in your brain as you're thinking about how to help another person. Are you keeping that numinous aspect to it? Are you limiting yourself or your diagnosis or your treatment of another person by trying to put them in a category? Or by even trying to decide, oh, I know this one thing I can do. Every time someone comes in with this is what I would do. We can all have our toolboxes. We can all cookie cutter things to some extent, but where can we expand ourselves? And that's where I think, and my teachers, my doctors that I consider magic, that have changed my life, whether it was just sitting there listening to them to speak or them treating me or working on me, the ones that blew me away, they somehow navigate that aspect. They're really good with the hard sciences and my body and my mind, but then they figured out how to wrap it in this non-dualistic, bigger, expansive thing that blows your mind and changes your life. And those are the game changers in our life. So we can be the game changer in our own life by rewiring how we think, and for sure in how we react and interact with the world. So that was that. And does anybody have any questions about operating in the numinous, non-dualistic realms?
I liked when you said about the mundane activities. It was easy to connect to that. And I thought of Deborah, our mutual friend in Hawaii. That was like the first concept that I think anyone ever shared that with me. She was like, it's a retreat center in Hawaii, and she was cleaning the kitchen, and I said, I will do it, like, let me help. And she was just sweeping away, and she was like, I really love touching my home like this every day. And I was like, like my brain was like, wait a second.
Whoa.
I could look at sweeping that like that. I would like to sweep more. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And I still, that was in 2017. I still, like, every time I'm vacuuming.
Pick up a sweeper. That's
Or a sweeper. And that's what I'm like, oh, I just want to touch my space in that way.
Yeah. I mean, we all have to chop wood and carry water.
I have space for you to come.
All of a sudden, everybody's going to be typing in.
You know I'll go.
Should do it. And it's a beautiful, so living in an ashram community for years of my life, we all had house chores to do. And I was guilty of dragging myself to Saturday morning seva sessions. And I mean, it was a little easier when you're sitting around a bunch of people who you love to pieces and you go, oh yeah, we're all here to do this work all the time, 24/7. That's why I live in this house. And then you look around and it would be easier. But it's a little harder for us to not get caught up in the mundane, even of the cool stuff. Even of the cool stuff that I'm doing. I did it this week. I started kind of bitching about having to be on my computer and designing all these curriculums. But the numinous aspect of what I'm doing right now is flipping amazing. It's, look, wow, I mean, but even in my woo-woo world, it's easy to get lost. The second we bring that consciousness back in, the second we allow ourselves to remember that everything has a numinous aspect. The darkest, dirtiest, crappiest, hardest stuff, the most mundane, boring, tedious stuff, then everything can become quite magical and quite extraordinary. And that's what gets more powerful than that. So, is anybody out there in the world that had questions? Because I don't want to discount the fact that I did invite people to come to class today with questions. So whether any of you came tonight with questions or not, I just want to, we had said if anybody wanted to come tonight with questions, so I wanted to make sure. And while I say that, and if Melissa looks, this time that we're gathering, I'm hoping every week forever, that wherever I am, that I can be sitting and holding space for a half an hour. Obviously, I have all the hours in my week beyond that, but I'm also happy to be working with everyone. But once a week, I want this to be our kind of tribal gathering time. I'm always happy to talk, but I'm also always happy to have this be a time where anybody else in our community, if something comes up throughout the week that we really feel like, whether it's just current events in the world that we feel like are affecting us all that we want to talk about, or a big question that someone's sitting with that they feel like we'd all benefit from discussing. I don't have any agenda of what this time needs to be about, other than us starting to create this community of people, both that get to be in this room and that can't be in this room tonight. And sometimes I won't be in this room, but I'll chime in from wherever I am, right? So whether Melissa or Chase are leading the hands-on stuff in here, or I am, I just want us to all start feeling like we have an hour where we can come together every week as a community and grow and build and work on our individual stuff collectively. That's kind of what this is about, right? So I can always talk about some of these big underlying themes of what the Lotus Way is working on and what we're working from, and then many of you I get to see throughout the week in sessions remotely or in person, and that's cool. And then we're going to have the trainings that we're going to be doing. And through all of that, I'm hoping once a week we just get to come back here and hang out together and really remember the really simple stuff. So that's mostly what I'm going to talk about, which is why I talked about the non-dualism, because I wanted to really make sure we hold that space as foundational for how we perceive our experiences together. That there's a bigger thing going on than I'll ever be able to put words to, and that I honor that in a really, like this, where we are all, the word that's coming is magicians, but it is really true. Like if we hold the intention collectively to allow this to be something that is immeasurable, then it will be. And that is what will make anything that we do together and go out from here from magic. So I think that's a kind of cool reason to come together once a week. You know, and just have it be so simple but so profound and so meaningful, and then to know that as I get to know each person in this community, that ripple effect is happening in our lives, and that to the extent that we can all each support each other and chime in and get to know what each other are doing or not. And there, you know, I was in my spiritual community for over a decade with a few people who barely said a word. And I cannot tell you how meaningful their role was in my life, even though they barely said a word for over a decade. But they were there, and they were part of this fabric that got created. You know, and then loudmouths like me who can't sit through a class when I'm a student without asking all the questions, and you know, and the person who never once opened their mouth. And that's all part of this, the reason why we do these collective experiences is to have all those energies come together to create a fabric that's allows us to have a different type of existence in this world. So I see people chiming in, but no questions.
They're just saying hello and sending some hearts.
Hi, everybody. Hi to everybody. Yay. Well, do we want to chant? Anybody want to do some chanting? I didn't print a lot of these, but right now we have 3 chants in our repertoire. One we have not done, which is Erica's favorite. I don't know if we ever want to start practicing it, but we have it. The other 2 are Om Namo Abhitavaya, Buddhaya, Dharmaya, Sanghaya. Right? We honor that this is a satsang, that this is a gathering of people who are inclined to develop ourselves as a spiritual community. So Amitabhaya is a representation of a healing energy that oversees that kind of work. Buddhaya is the Buddha, is the awakeness, doing it in a state of awakeness. Dharmaya is the metal rat part, the Dharma, doing the work together that we want to do. And Sanghaya is honoring the community. So that's a beautiful chant. The other one that we did is Om Mane Padme Hum, which is Om. Mane Padme is jewel and lotus. Hum is kind of the attainment of the enlightenment of our practices. So Om Mane Padme Hum. That's our other chant. Does anybody want to pick one? Feel the resonance?
Om Name.
Om Mane Padme Hum. Okay, Om Mane Padme Hum is very simple. And I can sing it for you once. And you guys can all chime in too. We can't hear you, but you can sing with us. So I'll start and you guys can join in whenever. We sing it 4 different courses.
Om Mane
I sung this today. I was singing, I am the lotus way, you are the lotus way, we are the lotus way, all are the lotus way, lotus way, you are the lotus way, we are the lotus way, all are the lotus way.
Thank
So,
you.
that mantra has been sung by so many millions of people for so many thousands of years. And when I sing it, I feel that vibration through time. Millions of people for thousands of years, one simple mantra to just allow us to remember that an unimaginable possibility, and just dropping into such an awareness that if we tap into that cosmic vibration and that jewel, the gems of this philosophy and these practices, what we can achieve. So nice. And so, to that extent, I hope that you all go out into the world and have an absolutely numinous experience. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and please reach out if you have any ways that I can support you.
Thank you.